Most people seem like they're here, so we're going to head and get started with the Call newspaper sponsored forum for the Mehlville School Board race this year. Before we start, I'd like to thank Andres for providing this venue for us. I'd like to thank, I'd like to thank the Call newspapers for sponsoring this. I'm probably off a little bit, but I believe they're almost on their 29th year of existence. Yeah. Okay, that's a long time. You know, I've been fortunate. I travel around a lot, or go around our country, or even around our area, and there's very few neighborhoods who have a newspaper dedicated to such local issues like that, and local issues that really impact people as far as school districts and such. And that's a real blessing for our community. But most of all, we'd like to thank the three people who are running for the board. They're running for a position that obviously pays nothing and is demanding a lot of time, and you know, you can get a lot of different opinions, and not many people even know what is a school board or who's even on the school board until some sort of controversy stirs up. And this is a true story. About 6 months ago, an elderly gentleman approached me at something. He goes, "Hey, is that Fowler guy still on the board?" And I said to him, I go, "Are you upset about something?" Because then I think he is still. So that was a true story. So basically what we're gonna do tonight is, I think you guys we're gonna have 2 minutes for each opening statement. And then we're gonna go through some questions. These are, if anyone else has other questions, go ahead and give them to Bill or Debbie, and I'll try to incorporate them.
Raise your hand and we'll come by and get them.
Absolutely. Some of these questions I have are kind of overlapping, so I'll try to condense them. And so we'll have 1 minute for each response. Debbie is gonna be keeping time. I think she'll, right. So we have yellow for 30 seconds.
Got it.
Or talk faster, and then the red. But if you have something that you want to carry through, and you reach the allotment time, just keep it, and then the next question that comes through, you can certainly feel free to add that on there.
Okay.
So I guess we'll start with you, Lisa. Is that okay?
All right.
So we're going to start with Lisa then and work our way down.
All right.
Thank you.
Can everyone hear me? Okay. So my name is Lisa Messmer, and I've been a member of the Mehlville School District my whole life. I went to kindergarten at Beasley and traveled through all of the schools and graduated from Oakville Senior High School. I have two daughters. They are both graduates of Oakville as well. My oldest is a 2006 graduate. She went to Truman University and will graduate with a master's in education this spring. My youngest graduated in 2013. She attended Columbia College in Chicago, and she's currently pursuing her master's in music composition, film, and media scoring at Dublin Institute of Technology's Music Conservatory in Dublin, Ireland. During my children's time as students in the district, I volunteered in many capacities in PTOs as room parent and scouts, teacher appreciation breakfast, library, and the band and choir parent groups. I also participated in Compass One, and I also volunteered my time in working for some tax initiatives. I'm also an active volunteer at my parish, which is Queen of All Saints, and have volunteered as an RCIA catechist. I've had leadership roles in Acts retreats. I lecture, and I'm a Eucharistic minister, and I'm also in our theater group, the Variety Guild. At this time, I do feel called to branch out and serve the greater Mehlville community. I feel like I'm doing all I can do at my church, and I do have a passion for education and a passion for the Mehlville School District, and so I thought that I could use my talents to a degree at Mehlville Schools. I have a Bachelor of Arts degree in anthropology from the University of Missouri and a Bachelor of Science in nursing from St. Louis University. Okay. I worked as an RN for 28 years, and I believe that my experience in developing curriculum, teaching, serving on various committees, and managing staff will be an asset to the Board of Education.
It's all yours, man. I usually let the ladies go first, but. Hi, my name is Ron Federchek. I am a 27-year resident of Mehlville, and I served on the Mehlville School Board in 2011 to 2015. The last year I was on the board, I did serve as board president. To give you a little background about myself, I graduated from the University of Illinois with a degree in chemical engineering, and I do have an MBA from SIU Edwardsville. I have 3 daughters. They all, 2 of them have graduated from Oakville in 13 and 15, and my last will graduate in 19. She also attends South Tech, so I got a little perspective on that university. I come from a family of educators, and I'm a product of public schools. My father was a elementary school principal in Alton for 38 years. He's given me a lot of background on kind of the administration day to day. My mom was a high school social studies teacher. I did have her for American history, which makes it very difficult when you raise your hand and you say mom or you say Mrs. Federchek. So, and my wife is a school social worker in the Collinsville School District. My sister-in-law is a reading specialist here at Blades Elementary, so it's very close to home. And I'm running for the school board because I keep seeing after a single term. What that's led to, I think, is kind of a loss of governance over how the school district is run, and it can lead to more severe problems. But my goal is to help get the district back on target and improve test scores, focusing on facilities, and then lastly, the issue of safety's come up. I've got a plan that I would propose to create a department of campus security for all the district, and I'll talk more about that later tonight. So appreciate your vote on April 1st.
Time for me?
Time.
Hi, my name is Tori Belkey, and I'd like to thank everyone for attending this evening and giving me the opportunity. I have been a part of the Mehlville School District for 21 years. I have a degree in child development and family studies, and what first brought me here was my job. I became center director of a child care program in preschool in Oakville. And as center director, I had many responsibilities, including curriculum, classroom management and classroom environment, developing and maintaining relationships with families, identifying student needs and finding ways for us to meet those individual needs within our program, overseeing the federal food program, school safety and student safety, student transportation, also complying with all state and local licensing, regulations, and laws. And within all of that, I was required to manage a budget, be accountable to expenses, and bring in a set amount of expected revenue. We were very successful in doing that, and we also nationally accredited our school. My husband grew up in Oakville and is a graduate of Oakville High School. We have 4 children within the Mehlville School District, 1 who's already graduated. And I have been deeply involved in the community within the schools for a long time. I have served as PTO president, vice president, and secretary, and continue to chair many different types of events that support our schools and our students and our community. I have also served on the Mehlville School District Character Education Committee and as on the Parents as Teacher Advisory Board for the Mehlville School District. I am honest, I am trustworthy, and I am reliable. I have a proven ability to motivate and inspire people to come together for a common goal and a common good, and take action on that and have proven results that are very positive. I have the experience and I have the character needed for the Board of Education. Thank you.
Thanks, Tori. All right, well, we're gonna start with something we've read a lot about. Ron had alluded to it, he spoke about, and we obviously read a lot about it in the papers today and the news. So we're gonna say, first question is, what should be done to better ensure the safety of our students and staff? And we'll just start with you, Lisa, and
Gonna
work
start
on
with
down.
me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In my work, I do belong to our safety committee. A lot of people don't realize that healthcare has the highest incidence of workplace violence. And so I have been certified in crisis prevention by CPI, the Crisis Prevention Institute, in de-escalation training, and I'm a trainer for that. I think as far as our schools go, I believe that collaboration with our local law enforcement is a good plan, to have them come in at various unscheduled times, maybe beef up our student resource officers. As you know, the student resource officer in Maryland was able to stop an active shooter situation. So I think that those are some areas. I also think that our students need to be wearing their lanyards and need to be looking for people that don't belong and be instructed in that.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.
Ron, you need me to repeat the question?
No,
Just
I'm
let me
good.
know, okay.
I would say, worst day I served on the school board was the day Sandy Hook happened. You just visualize it, and it was just a horrible day. One of the things that as a school board, you can do in secret is plan your security. And I will tell you, I never once worried about sending any of my daughters to school. What I've seen and what I would propose is, we have a director of transportation, food services, HR. We need a director of campus security, someone with security credentials, a former police officer, to coordinate the crisis plans at all of our 18 campuses and make sure those are being followed. Lisa brings up a good idea. My daughter goes to Oakville, and she said, week 1, Parkland, everybody was on their P's and Q's, everybody was being buzzed in. After a week, it kind of went back to, you've got your lanyard, you got it. So, but we need a point of accountability. And it shouldn't be an educator that's forced to spend their time doing something that they really don't understand. Thank you. That was quick 30. So the yellow and then the red.
I know, the yellow, I was wondering about that, yes.
That was fast.
I also feel that we need to review policy and procedures to ensure that the current policies that we have are meeting the needs of our schools. And it needs to be something that is right at the forefront of everything going on so that we can continue to review those things. We need to work with specialists and law enforcement and those who are familiar with school security specifically. I'm aware that we do have Brian Smith organizing many of our safety things within the district as well. And we need to continue to come together and look for those ways to update things. I have had the opportunity to visit the schools and have been to most of them over the past 6 weeks. And it's interesting to become familiar with how things are handled at the door with the buzzer letting you in, how central the office is to the front door, and some of the different procedures that are seen. So we need to stay on top of and review that.
Okay, we're gonna stay in that vein. We have another question then. So if you have something else to add on what you just talked about, feel free to throw it in. It says, do you agree there is a need to arm teachers in the Mehlville School District? And Lisa, go ahead.
Okay, you're gonna start with me again?
Sure, unless you guys wanna keep going that way, or?
It's better to
Just-
alternate,
You
so.
We can take turns.
Yeah,
Let's
we
take
can
turns.
turns.
Let's go one
You
at
wanna
a
start,
time.
Tori?
I will start this time,
Well,
absolutely.
come bring it this way then.
Why don't we,
Alright.
take turns on who starts first and who goes last.
So do you agree there is a need to arm teachers in the Mehlville School District?
I first of all think that that's a good question to ask the teachers, and I think it's a misguided assumption that guns with teachers improve safety. I think it opens up a whole nother can of worms when it comes to the safety of our students that needs to be addressed. And I, firmly believe that security members handle security and teachers teach, and that's where we need to see it. So, yeah.
Okay. Me or we?
No,
Okay.
we'll just come back this way then.
All right, I'm gonna wrap up my last thought. The point of accountability with a director of campus security, please always say, if you see something, say something. That would be the person that you would say it to, whether it was in your school or not. So, the word need is I don't like that in the question. I would never force anybody who's not comfortable using a weapon to actually have to use a weapon. So, one of the things we could look at is, teachers who want that kind of training, make it, if the state legislature agrees, we could explore that. It doesn't have to be a lethal weapon. It could be a taser. It could be bear spray that sprays 40 feet of pepper spray. Anything, I work with adhesives. There's certain adhesives that you mix together, they turn into an instant foam that could be like a man trap for some, applications. But our coordinator could also look at ways of hardening several of the rooms. There's always new technologies that are coming out, so I'm gonna leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, like I said, my daughter is a teacher, and I can tell you that she would never have a gun in her classroom. She's a teacher, that's what she's there for. So I think that we would need to talk to teachers and see how they feel about it. I agree with Tori that it should be taken to them. I think that that there are many unknowns with arming teachers. There are things that could happen that make me very hesitant to be supportive of guns in the classroom. For example, what is to stop a group of kids from jumping a teacher that they know that has a concealed weapon? What would be the cost of training? Who would be responsible for paying for that training? If it's not mandated by the school district, then it would be, the individual would be responsible for that. I still think going with the beefing up our SROs and our police officers is the way to go.
Good. This next question says, do you support a potential extension of Prop P in 2020? And can't believe it's November of 2000 is almost going to be 19 years ago, but I believe in November of 2000, voters overwhelmingly passed a $68.4 million bond issue, and in 2020, that tax levy will expire. So I guess we'll start with you, Lisa.
Okay.
If you'd support an extension of that.
Okay.
Hence a no tax rate increase.
Yes. Well, I did support the original tax initiative, and I do believe that I would definitely support extending that. Our facilities are old, and there are some serious issues with some of our buildings with leaking roofs and plumbing and electricity, and I do think that we do need to continue working on capital improvement.
I would agree. It's a critical area. There was one of the first things when the budget got tight was maintenance was stripped back. We started looking at replacing HVACs when they failed rather than when they should have been replaced, and that ends up costing you more money. But I would support maintaining that.
I would also support maintaining that. It makes sense for our schools to be able to provide what is needed without a tax increase to the community, and continue that stream of revenue coming in so that we can address needs and handle things without, we rolled the taxes back before, a few years ago, and it caused a lot of problems in the end, and it put us in a situation of needing Prop R very badly. So this is a perfect example of why not to do that and take it to support it.
Okay, so we're gonna start here, then this
It would be gentlemen and go first sometimes. Thanks.
you wanna go first, Ron?
Yeah, that, I think.
All right, you gotta talk.
I just think it makes sense to.
Sure,
I usually let the ladies go first, but
okay.
I try to be a gentleman, but
Well then, Ron, you can talk about yourself here a little bit
Oh,
first.
good.
It says, what experiences will you bring that will help hold teachers and administrators accountable for the education of our students? And when they say administrators, they stress the word central office.
Right.
So I guess you're talking about personal experience there, so go ahead.
Well, the role of the Board of Education is to hire one employee, and that is the superintendent. The superintendent manages the district. He manages the central office administrators, the principals, the teachers. That's the person that you hold accountable. That's the experience I've had as a school board member and school board president. I worked with Eric Knost. He was one style. Norm Ritter was a different, and I led the search for Dr. Gaines, and again, a third different personality. But that's the person that you hold accountable, and that's the idea of governance. You have 5 tools to do that, and I'll talk a little bit about those as we get further along. But if expectations aren't being met in the classroom, that's when you bring the superintendent in front of the board and say, what's the plan? What do you need? And you go from there.
Okay. I would expect to collaborate with the other board members and the superintendent and use the strategic plan that we have that can be very much a living document to be created and ongoing to make sure that we are addressing student needs, school needs in the classroom, academic achievement, and student success. I would expect that when we see we are falling short of those things, that we have the opportunity to address that and to make sure that all district initiatives and expenditures go towards support in the classroom, which is going to directly relate to student success and academic achievement.
So the question was
Sure.
what experiences you
Yeah,
have?
yeah,
Okay.
that you
Oh,
will
I think
bring,
we've-
Okay.
yeah,
I
exactly.
missed that part a little bit.
That's all right.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks.
as far as experience, I've run a department at a school, Metro Business College, which was down in Arnold. So I managed curriculum and students, worked with them to be successful in the classroom. I was not in charge of the budget per se, although I was given a budget. I'm also a supervisor currently at Nazareth Living Center, and I work with the administrators on a daily basis. And so, as Tori was saying, I believe that collaboration is key, doing your research is key, and working well with others, being open and collaborating with others.
Okay. Well, we're gonna stay in the same vein. I have some cards up here regarding Superintendent Gaines. And so since the Board of Education is boss, per se, the question is, and you guys are really confusing me with changing how you're starting, so whoever wants to start this one, go ahead. It said, is there anything Superintendent Gaines has done that you disagree with, and if so, why? Is it your turn? I don't know, you guys
I
are
did the
jumping all
ladies
over.
first.
Well, I
I
mean,
went first
we
last.
just vary.
Okay.
That's fine. I think this Superintendent Gaines is doing a good job. I think that we could have some improvement on communication. I think at times there have been good ideas or important things that have gone out into the community or into the schools that perhaps there has been some misunderstanding or misinformation, which has created rumors and other things of that sort that we could avoid happening by having a little bit more clear communication. For example, we can take the C-Day schedule and block scheduling. Going to a listening session recently and listening to our community and the feedback and listening to Dr. Gaines's responses to that made things much more clear to me as a school district parent. And there was something missed there that I think could have allowed for a smoother transition with some of that.
Dr. Lisa? Or?
All right. I think Dr. Gaines is doing a great job. I think during his tenure, communication with the community has seemed to get a little bit better, although I agree with Tori in that there's a lot of information out there, but accessing it can sometimes be very difficult. One of the areas that I thought maybe the superintendent might have jumped the gun a little bit was with the C-Day. They fast-tracked it and started it, and I don't think that they rolled it out. I think they rolled it out a little bit too fast. I think if they would have taken their time, it might have had a better outcome. But overall, I think he's fantastic. I love the idea of Mosaic, that we have this school of innovation and that we're having teachers from other areas of the state coming in to learn how we're educating our children at Mosaic. I think it's very positive for the community.
I will say, again, echoing the ladies, he's very talented, very brilliant. His resume was outstanding. The one concern I had, and I'm kind of seeing this, if things you want to ask what I disagree with, is coming from a small town, he basically ran his school district the way he wanted. He didn't have a lot of, help, so he had to do a lot. And I think he's brought a lot of that to our district. A couple things I really disagree with and could lead to problems down the road, not with him, but something simple like submitting your expense reports. That should be signed off by an officer of the school board. That's your boss. He's currently submitting, as far as I know, to the CFO, which is his subordinate. So I don't think anything's possibly wrong, but you looked at what happened at Arnold. His move to stop the teachers from being able to take Mondays or Fridays in April, May, did it unilaterally. So those are, those kind of autocratic moves, those kind of things do concern me, and that's kind of coming from that small town situation.
Okay. This next question regards the district's communication. Actually, they phrase it, what do you think of the district's communication and how can it improve? How can it improve? But we could also say, perhaps you like how it is currently. So this is a chance to talk about the district's current communication and do you see any areas of improvement?
Okay.
I think you're up this time.
All right. I guess this is tagging along with the last question. Yes, I do see some areas of improvement. There's a ton of information out there. It's very difficult to get to. When I was looking for PTO presidents, it took me probably a week and a half to figure them all out. It wasn't easily accessible. So one of the things I did do was I did meet with Gloria last week, and we talked about some ways that maybe we could utilize the call in getting, kind of like human interest stories out, things that are going really well in our schools, things that I think that the community would be interested in. So I think that's it.
Okay.
Overall, the communications in the district is pretty good. We got lucky, again, talking about a director who came from the private sector. John Wolf came from KSDK News. So very good with videos, very good at passing along information. So from that standpoint, it's pretty good. I think the social media, I don't follow it, but from what I gathered, there is a pretty good presence on that. So a couple things I guess I would like to see is, I don't know, we talked a little bit about it. People who don't have kids in the district sometimes don't get a lot of the information that's going on, and that could be good and bad. One of the great things I think we did when my first term was to bring the electronic e-board agenda and minutes, so the people in the community could see what was going on in terms of the administration of the district. So I'm very proud that we did that, and I think we can do more things like that in the future.
I do think our district is doing a pretty good job with communication. However, I do see some areas for improvement and something to look at. During my time visiting schools and getting a chance to see all of the awesome things that are taking place within the schools, within the classroom, and within the community and culture of the school, I found that for someone who has their ear to the ground in the district and knows a lot of people, there were a lot of things that I didn't know about. And I'm a parent in the school district. So looking at it from that standpoint, and then also looking at it from a standpoint where we have community members a large set of community members that do not have students in the district, we have a lot of opportunity to take advantage of through the call, through social media, through our district website, through improvement there, to get those things out. We have created great momentum with the support of Prop R, and we need to be getting those messages out to our community so we stay strong in that and they understand we're keeping our promises.
Great, thank you. I'm getting a few up here talking about math scores, math interventionists, so I'm gonna do my best, give me a little rope here to try to put them together. It says, and I don't know whatever you guys are gonna decide who wants to start this one. It says, do you support the recent addition of math interventionists to improve math comprehension? And whoever.
I think Tori's up.
Okay.
I'll go second.
I do support it, yes. We have 6 interventionists at some of our most needy schools. And I see that as a bonus. Again, I've been in the schools and I've seen and talked with the teachers and I've talked with the administrators on how that's working. Each school is utilizing that a bit differently and allowing them to address students who have additional needs. We've also done things like Front Row, which was another opportunity to create in all of the schools and balance out things that we need within every single school. Our school community is different in every school, and we have to understand that. Going from one school at one part of the district and another, those dynamics and demographics don't look quite the same with our test scores and with the needs of our students and academics. And so I believe that the district has done a good job of addressing that and arming the teachers with opportunities to create better student success.
Just to clarify, when you raise the yellow, is that like the 10 second?
10 seconds.
Thank you, I thought it was the halfway mark, so,
Yeah.
okay.
But thanks
With,
for, yeah.
with the math interventionist, that idea came from Jamie Murphy, and I know other board members in the past have pushed for that. 2 years ago, Sam Stormer in the call said our math test scores were embarrassing. They got worse, and I don't know where the plan is. Dr. Gaines said at the December meeting he would present something. It hasn't been presented. I think there's a plan, but again, that should be discussed in public. I do think this is not a teacher issue, with the exception of several teachers have told me they're overwhelmed with the amount of professional development, and when you bring in a new curriculum, it's very difficult, for a teacher just to be able to pick it up and be able to do that. So I would hold, the curriculum. There was obviously somebody sold this to the district. They need to be in front of the school board explaining why our math scores are falling to the bottom of St. Louis County. So I'm very concerned about that, and that it's not being publicly discussed is a big concern with board governance.
I do agree with Ron that the math test scores are a big concern for me. It's one of the reasons why I decided to go ahead and run for the Board of Education. I have been attending the board meetings, and I was at the board meetings where they discussed adding the math interventionists. I totally am in support of the math interventionists, and some of the things that they have introduced in this last school year or last 2 years. Things like Front Row, which Tori talked about. They have collaborative learning labs, discovery education, guided math, and small group math instruction. And so these are methods that we are currently using to help to improve our math scores. And I fully support all of those methods.
Okay. I hope I'm not being redundant, but like I said, I have a lot of questions about math up here. So if this is kind of the same and you don't have anything to add, then feel free. You don't have to answer it much. But it says, we are all aware that Mehlville School District's math scores are lower than desired. What plans or ideas do you have to help improve academics that are not already being put into action? And the second part, which I think kind of segues into what you guys were talking about, says, how soon do you realistically think we should see improvement on the math scores?
I think I'm up first, so I'll go.
Take it, Ron.
I get back to your superintendent is your chief educational officer. He has a curriculum director, he has supervision. Unfortunately, the math interventionist thing, I wanted to bring this up, he's targeting 6 schools that struggle. I hear teachers say this all the time, and it's true. You don't teach to the test, and you don't just send interventionists to the schools that are dragging your scores down. You help all kids. We were at Oakville Middle School, and 6th grade parent said one of her child's friends didn't know if 2 was an odd or even number. There are kids in every school that need that help, and there needs to be a plan. Math is not just to pass a MAP score. You need to have math to be successful in the 21st century. Whether you're doing robotics, whether you're doing computer science. My daughter just graduated with a degree in engineering. So this needs to spread, and if you teach kids correctly, they'll do well on the test.
All right, I have a lot to say. So when it was recognized, not just currently this year, but prior, that we were seeing difficulties in math, the district changed their curriculum rollout and is initiating a brand new math curriculum actually this coming school year. It is in a pilot program right now, and it will be initiated to go directly to what we're seeing with math scores. I disagree with what he says with professional development. We have increased our professional development budget significantly. And I have heard directly from teachers and from administrators to say specifically, when we can have the opportunity to increase the capacity of the teacher, that's the best tool that we'll ever get, because they're the ones who are going to be in that classroom for the long haul. Different supporting teachers might come and go. Front Row might come and go because it's going to be a different program a few years from now. But giving the teachers the ability that we have, that we need, is critical.
I agree with Tori in that we want to invest in our teachers. If our teachers have good teaching skills, then that only makes sense that our students are going to perform better. The new curriculum rollout, we'll see how that goes. My kids did the Chicago math program, so I think across the nation, there is a lot of movement in math. I think that's just one of the subjects that people have the most anxiety over and is probably one of the more difficult subjects. So I agree. Investing in our teachers is going to, I think, give us the biggest return.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. We're gonna go to this one. This is about the only one in this thread that I've seen. So it says, what does it mean to return governance to the board? And I think we could probably go a little further. This insinuates that the board doesn't have governance right now. So the question is, what does it mean to return governance to the board?
First time.
Okay.
Who's up?
I'll go first. I think that the board is doing a fine job of governing our superintendent, and I would agree with the questioner in questioning that and not kind of understanding what the question is really asking. I think that the board has done a fantastic job of working in collaboration with the superintendent and with the teachers, and I do not see an issue with the governance of the board.
I think you're.
Okay.
I agree. I think the board is doing a great job. And I think a key word here is collaborate with each other and respectfully understand each other's positions without it creating problems like we have seen in the past. And I would want to see that continue, because having that type of culture within your board and working with your superintendent is exactly what you need to get things done. Otherwise, it creates chaos, and it's a simple distraction from what is going on. So the whole governance idea, I'm not quite sure where that comes from. And I would be concerned with someone, you know, I'm sorry, Ron, I'm gonna call you out and say, you called for the resignation of current board members, and to think that you wanna get back on and say collaborate, I find a hard time squaring those two things up.
Governance is 5 tools that the school board has. And I did want to clarify one thing, but from the last answer, I'm not saying we're not getting enough professional development. I'm saying there's too many programs that teachers are forced, you know, if they're doing 5 or 6 things, it's difficult. But in terms of governance, you have 5 tools. You have the budget, you have the agenda, you have the calendar, you have the superintendent's contract, and the policy. This board has slowly let all of those tools go into the hands of Dr. Gaines. This is how 10 years from now, you end up with a situation like Fox had. I'm not saying that we're gonna have that situation, but the board is an oversight of the superintendent. When you look at what I specifically asked for the resignation for, we passed a policy, and the policy said, we're not letting central office administrators negotiate in the NEA negotiations because they're married to NEA members. We want the attorney. Board members chose to ignore that. That's something that you hold their superintendent accountable for. His contract, I'm going to talk about that next, but I'm out of time.
You are out of time, but we have more questions, so you'll have another chance. So this will segue into what you just spoke about. It said, should an attorney participate in teacher negotiations instead of the board and administration?
Well, I'll be happy to go first on this since I was already
If that's right with you guys?
on that.
Sure, Ron, go ahead then.
You know, like I said, there are a lot of interpersonal relationships within the school district. I discovered several of the people who were negotiating for the board were married to teachers, so they're basically negotiating for raises in their own household. That's why I brought that proposal forward as a policy. That can't be done now because policies go through the superintendent through the policy committee. So like I said, that policy needs to be enforced. There's a move to try to go back to where the teachers are negotiating with central office administrators. So I do disagree with that. Back to the superintendent's contract. You know, that is done out of order. That was a governance issue. Teachers should be paid first. You know, you gave the superintendent 3.5% raises for the next 3 years and without any evaluation. So teachers should start with that. And that's not the way it goes. Again, it's a governance issue. So, you know, when you talk about following policy, follow policy.
Would you please repeat the question?
Definitely. Oh,
if you can find it.
Oh, no.
Should the attorney be used, I think you,
Okay.
Should an attorney participate in teacher negotiations instead of the board and administration?
Okay. I do not have a problem with an attorney participating in teacher negotiations. I think it is best to have a third party. They are specialists in negotiation, so why would you not want to use the best people in that process? So I don't have a problem with attorneys participating in teacher negotiations.
All right, Tori?
My understanding is that there has, because of some revisions, been some conflicting policies that deal with negotiations, and so identify that that needs to be reviewed to make sure that there's one consistent policy that is followed. If in fact a third party like an attorney should be present, I'm open to looking at, and I don't think that I would have a problem with it, and I would be happy to look at that as a part of the policy that we have. And I want to hit on really quick, Ron bringing up Dr. Gaines' the increase in salary, which it confuses me because he has said he thinks Dr. Gaines should be committed to a 10-year contract when we first got him. And it's the kind of thing that we need, is have a consistent superintendent here for a long time, because we haven't had one. And so I'm glad to know that he is sticking around.
Thank you. We'll kind of go into another question. We talked about negotiations, it talked about teachers, and this question regards teachers. It says, what is your plan to attract and retain quality teachers, with an emphasis on the word retain? So I don't know, Tori, are you up?
Sure thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm good. First of all, we already talked about this. The increase of the professional development budget is significant for retaining teachers. And that all comes together also with the community culture and the school culture. Getting a chance to get inside the schools and see how that feels. I can speak for myself as a parent, and walking into Oakville Elementary and knowing what a solid foundation that is at a school with extremely low teacher turnover, only resulting usually from a retirement or a promotion. And I have taken upon myself to go into schools and see how that feels with other things, because I know that we've had some teacher turnover in the years and at different schools. And it comes back to, we've got to make teachers feel comfortable and confident that they are supported, and that they are walking into a school every day that has their back, and so that they can have the tools that they need to provide student success.
Follow up?
Sure. I think teacher retention is critically important. When we lose a teacher, we don't just lose a person, we lose all of their experience and knowledge. So it's expensive to retrain another person. So I see that all the time where I work. We have a 20% turnover rate, and I can tell you that that just kills our budget, and it impacts our ability to care for our residents. And I don't see why it would be any different for teachers once they if you're constantly having new graduates or new teachers that don't understand the culture of the schools or the school district, and you lose that if you're constantly turning your staff over.
Okay. Well,
I get an answer here real quick.
Sure, Ron.
I've kind of picked on several of the board members, but I do want to compliment Sam Stormer, who's the current board president. When we were on the board together, I knew I was leaving, and I asked her to work with the NEA to help develop a better salary schedule to help attract and retain. I think she did a great job with that. So I did want to comment, though, about Dr. Gaines' contract. You know, there's no problem giving the superintendent a raise, but there needs to be an evaluation before that. We had that with Dr. Cano's contract. So, but back to the teachers, I do think, you know, if we could give all the teachers a $7,000 a year raise like Dr. Gaines got, I think that'd be a great way to go to help retain and attract new teachers.
All right, getting close to winding up here. But before we get there, we got a few questions on, strategic plan, the board's strategic plan. Let's see, well, I guess the first one is, do you believe that the current board is following the strategic plan? And if elected, how would you want to change that plan?
I don't know who would.
I will go first. Thanks for asking your questions with a smile every time.
All right,
by the
no
way.
worries. Thanks for
That's
answering
nice.
with a smile.
You're welcome.
All right.
I do believe that the strategic plan is being followed. I see a great deal of emphasis on student success and academic achievement, on innovation, on the ability to bring things together. And if you haven't had the opportunity to look at the strategic plan, it is available, and it's great. It identifies the needs of our students and supporting them, supporting the teachers, and creating that culture that we should expect to have in a strong community. You know, a strong community is only as good as its school district, and the strategic plan puts us in a place to get there.
One of the great experiences I had on the school board was working with Dr. Norm Ritter. Several of you probably got a chance to meet him, but he brought that idea to us, even as an interim. He promised us three things when he got here. He said he would help us find a new superintendent, he would help us develop a strategic plan, and he would help us pass, Prop R the right way and engage the community. So he did all three things. In the strategic plan, he looked at best practices throughout similar school districts in St. Louis County. I do think this administration is following it. I do think could be some more resources put towards it. We're sitting on a $28 million reserve, and it's roughly 25% of the budget annually operating. So we could invest more into the strategic plan, professional development, reading interventionists. We were so far behind Lindbergh, and that was who we're trying to model our reading success after. So like I said, I think we can do more, and I'd like to see more of those reserves go towards that.
Okay. I agree. I think that the school district is following the strategic plan, and I do agree with the strategic plan. I think they did a beautiful job in developing that. So I'm actually going to address the reserves question because I have a little bit of a different take on that than Ron does. I have the budget, the little graphic right in front of me. And he is correct. In June, we will have 24.9 million in our reserves. However, it is projected to drop down to 2.5 in December. So in my opinion, we need to look to the future because if we would have spent more than 2.5 million, then we would have had to go into deficit spending. And so I think we need to be very careful with that and not look at firm dates. Budgets are fluid, they don't start and stop on specific dates.
Okay, we're trying.
I believe I started. I think the
Strategic
question.
plan, the strategic.
I changed I kind of changed.
Well, I think, yeah, she changed it. She answered
kind of
it.
changed the
She
question.
tagged on to
You
what
trying
I
to
said.
fool me?
Yeah.
It's working too, I think. You're doing a good job of
Thank you
it.
for-
Keeping you on your toes.
Yeah, I am, literally.
I know.
So we're gonna do two more questions. They wanna keep this to within an hour, so we're gonna do two more questions, that kind of involve classroom things here. The first one is, how do you see the role of SROs, and should discipline be part of the role of an SRO?
I don't know.
I'll go ahead and take it first. It's a difficult one.
So
because-
obviously, I don't know what SRO means,
it means
otherwise I
school
would've,
resource
no, I know it does,
officer.
I'm joking.
Yeah, okay. I've never actually considered involving an SRO in school discipline, and I don't think just on, first take on it that I would be for that. I think that's up to the administration of that particular school. I think that's outside of their scope of their job.
Me or you?
I will go. I think our SROs are great, and they have an awesome presence at the schools that I am a parent of. Specifically, OES and Bernard are two places that I see them prevalent. And actually, I'm aware that the SROs are involved in positive reinforcement with our students. which is kind of an opposite side of discipline, but it creates a really good environment for our students to be successful and understand right from wrong. And so I had never considered it from the opposite view, and I really like the approach that this is taking, and how the teachers and the students and the administrators can work together with that, so.
Basic answer is no, they shouldn't be involved in discipline, but they can help the administration. Sometimes bringing a child in with a big burly police officer and it kind of changes their attitude. But I did want to talk back, I got a few seconds, so I wanted to address Lisa's comment, and again, it shows that, you know, what an inexperienced board member might get tricked into. You know, you're looking at when you spend money. A fiscal year ends on June 30th, and that's how the state evaluates your financial health. What Lisa doesn't show on her chart is in January, the reserves go back up to 50 million because you get your property tax. So as long as you're able to pay your bills and pick when you pay, that's the trick that the CFO is looking at, you know, and we haven't had the deficits, and short-term borrowing is like a few weeks to make your payroll. We haven't had to do that since 2011, even in the midst of, you know, severe financial crisis. So again, the experience of understanding that and you know, knowing what the CFO is spending on, let's say, like for example, buses. If he wants to buy buses and he buys it too soon, your reserves go down.
You're out of time.
There.
We answered.
We all
did?
answered.
Well, this is the
I
last
know, I
one.
totally changed it.
You were trying to get more time, weren't you? No,
I
I'm
answered
just-
the question
No,
and then
you-
I had a few seconds
All right,
to talk.
this is the last one, and it says, how do you feel about standards-based grading? And it says, do you support the expansion of this grading system to the upper grades?
I will be happy to go first on this
Please.
one. So, again, I'll mention my dad was a elementary school principal for 38 years, and he told me, he's like, this, you know, ebbs and flows. You know, you get one decade where you say, well, we're gonna look at what skills kids have, and then we're gonna go back to the letter grade. Again, this is a question for the educators. We're bringing our community experience. I like to see competition, and one of the things that we're, at the higher grades that we're getting away from is class rank and GPAs. I think that does a disservice. I think kids need to learn to compete. I think they need to do their best work. And like I said, when that initiative passed where, you know, we're only gonna rank the top, I think it's 25 or 50 kids in a class, I think you're losing some kids, so.
Now we'll go next. Very quickly, I'm going to address what Ron just said about the $28 million. He used the word tricks and pick when you pay, and that's just simply not how you operate with a budget. I don't do it in my household, and I wouldn't expect somebody else, especially when we're accountable to taxpayer money, to use tricks and pick when we pay our bills. Standards-based grading, I think it has some really great things about it in assessing student needs to a deeper level. I, however, have seen models that have given the ability to go a 1 through 4 versus a 1 through 3, and I see a lot of opportunity for a model such as that. I attended the district-led thing, because I can't think of the word right now, on standards-based grading at Nottleman Auditorium to learn more about it. And I do have some more questions that I would like to be answered to support it in the upper grades, including middle school.
So based on my research on standards-based grading, because I don't have a kid in the district anymore, there are kind of 3 things that I like about it and 3 things that I hate about it. So things that I like, the teachers are able to use ongoing assessments as a way to guide their instruction, which makes sense. You see where they're at, and that tells you where to go. It requires the teacher to closely examine the actual standards of their content and evaluate the objectives of that content. And then it also promotes communication between the teacher and the student and their parents. So those are things that I think are nice about it. It works kind of like it's goal-based, so it kind of almost ties into like a game, you know, where you go leveling up and with each objective. And then the things I don't like is the time that requirement for teachers, and it seems like a semantics.
Right.
Well, thank you. Now, did you start when we did the opening statements, or did Tori?
I did.
You did. All right. Well, we
You wanna go
are going to go backwards on this, though.
Right.
So we're going to do the closing statements, and we're going to go from Tori
Tori down.
to Ron.
Ron can stay in the middle.
That's right. That's just how it is. So go ahead with your. We have you do 2 minutes for the closing statement.
Okay, great, thank you.
Uh-huh.
You know, school board experience and prior experience such as that is only a benefit if it's experience of excellence in leadership. My experiences in leadership roles over the past 21 years, including things like being president of the PTO, demonstrates my ability to collaborate with others for the good of our students and the good of our community and our schools. Decisiveness and the inability to work well with others and as a team is not what the school district needs. I'm committed to maintaining the momentum in Mehlville. I speak about it a lot because I very much passionately believe in that. And I am not interested in turning back the clock to what was several years ago. I'm able to approach things with an open mind and a questioning attitude, and that's very important. And I value creating and sustaining a community culture where we celebrate its history, its traditions, its innovations, and that we place an importance on leaving a legacy for future generations. I'm a servant leader. It is what's brought me here today. And when I look back to the past 21 years of my life, I see that all roads and experiences have led me to the spot as a candidate for the Board of Education, and I am anxious to put all of my experience to use in the Mehlville School District. I am confident that I am the right candidate for this. I have a passion for our students, for our community, for our Mehlville School District, and I am really looking forward to working with others to build that and maintain that momentum. I would appreciate, somebody told me once that we should say our names at the end.
There you go.
So I'm going to tell you again, my name is Tori Belkey, and I am number 2 on the ballot, and I am asking for your vote on April 3rd. Thank you.
I will go second. I am third on the ballot. Again, my name is Ron Federchek, and I have served on the board. I want to tell everybody in the community, you know, politics sometimes gets nasty and ugly, but I've really enjoyed traveling with these two ladies. They both said they're servant leaders, and they've done a lot in like the PTOs, and one of them will be a great board member to join me, I think. And I hope if it does come out that one of you, if one of you does not get a seat this year, please run again, because I think you'll bring a lot to the district. But again, the only reason that I came back was the fact that we continue to lose experienced board members, and you need that governance. Tori talked about being collaborative, but you do have a job not to let the district be run to a direction that it shouldn't be. And, that might be great collaboration. I think, if you look at Fox, they probably collaborated really well, and, they end up with their superintendent, stealing money from the district, and the board president getting jobs. We're not anywhere close to that, but you're setting the groundwork if you don't, do your job with governance. So, like I said, I want to bring that experience, and I encourage you to vote for me on April 3rd. Again, Ron Federchek, and thank you very much for having us tonight.
Lisa Messmer, so I guess I'm number 1 on the ballot. And I just want to share with you that I have been a registered nurse for 28 years. Every day, people give me the care of their loved one, and they trust me. They trust my judgment. I have very high ethics. I'm a critical thinker, and I have a real passion for public education and a real passion for this school district. You can ask anyone that knows me, and I have had my ear to the ground in this district for, my oldest is 30 years, so for we weren't living here, so about 25 years. So I will always have the best interest of the students at heart. I am asking for your vote on April 3rd, and I do think that I have the skills, and I disagree with Ron a little bit on the collaboration. Everyone that knows that when you're in healthcare, you work on interdisciplinary teams, so You're constantly collaborating with people from other disciplines that are approaching problems from different angles. And we have to, as nurses, be able to, because we're the point of care people, be able to integrate all of these different perspectives on the same problem and then implement a plan of care. And I see no reason why I wouldn't be able to make that transition on the school board. It's just kind of the way I think and just the way I am. So I would appreciate your vote on April 3rd as well.
What was your name again?
Lisa Messmer.
All right.
Can I add one more thing, and I'm sure the ladies will could? We'd like to thank Aaron for
Oh,
Yes,
hosting
yes,
this and
thank
doing
you
a great
very
job
much.
tonight. We
Like I
appreciate it.
said,
Save that applause, because we need to give to these three who had to take some of these questions, and I know it's kind of hard answering things extemporaneously like that when it's dropped on you, and so we're gonna knock it all out with one round of applause. That's for Andres, for the call, and then especially for these three candidates next to us, so thank you.